everyone, Elsie Jensen here. Tonight we are going to make a meal that I make when we're all sick. Apparently last night everyone in my house decided to get the norovirus and it has been a catastrophe and lots of sickness everywhere. So we're going to make a simple basic vegetable-y broth soup, a lemon, orange, and honey, ginger drink, and then some sourdough discard crackers. So just a really simple meal that will be gentle on our stomachs. So I'm going to start out with my sourdough discard crackers. I'm going to line a baking sheet with some parchment paper. This is essential. You really need to do it on parchment paper. I have 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix in 1 cup of discard with my melted butter. And then I will spread it out thinly on my sheet, and then I'll add some flavors. I'm gonna give it a good stir just in case I had any bubbles or liquid up to the top. And then I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of discard into my 2 tablespoons of melted butter. And these are a really simple crunchy cracker that you can make with discard. It's not a roll out or refrigerate. We're gonna stir our butter and our discard together until it's mixed. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna spread it out thinly on our parchment. There we go. And the trick is you want to have it thin because it's going to bake up and crisp up this way. We'll pop it in the oven. I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees. And we'll pop them in there, and after about 10 minutes I will go through and score them like a little cut, and then bake them for another 15 to 20 minutes. So you want to kind of spread them out really thin. So I'm just using my little thin spatula here to spread them out. And you want to try to make it as even as possible. So I'm just spreading it out into my shape first, and then I'm going to work on evening them out. And what we'll do is we'll bake at 350 degrees for about 10-15 minutes first, and then I will score them with a knife, or if you had a pizza cutter you could do that at home, and then pop them back in the oven. And that will just allow them to have their shape of a cracker shape. You could also just bake them all the way through and then just break the crackers in half when you're done. That works as well. So I'm just trying to spread it out because I want it to be even as possible. So I've made it into a pretty big rectangle here. And then I'm done with this one. I'm gonna give my little shake, and that will help even it out. And then a little, hold that, shake. And now this is where we're gonna add our seasonings. I'm gonna be using some rosemary, just because I feel like rosemary has such a nice flavor on our thing. I'm gonna pour it out. You don't need too much, just a nice sprinkling over. And then I'm gonna use some garlic salt and some black pepper. It's really important, don't put too much salt on here or your cracker will be really salty, because these are pretty thin crackers that a little bit of salt goes a long way. So I'm putting on, you could also use fresh rosemary if you had it, but I just had the dry today. And then I'm gonna use some black pepper, and I'm just gonna shake that on. And I'm holding my spice up really high so that it spreads out. The closer, you're gonna get more spice. And then some garlic salt. Perfect. And then I'm gonna pop these in the oven at 350. We're gonna bake for about 10-15 minutes. Then I will cut them and we'll bake for another 10-15 minutes. For them to crisp up into a nice firm cracker. So it's just a really basic sourdough discard cracker. And then I'm going to set my timer for 13 minutes.
You just got asked if that's sourdough?
Yes, so that I used a cup of sourdough discard and I mixed it with 2 tablespoons of butter. And then I spread it out thinly on my parchment paper and I sprinkled rosemary, pepper, and garlic salt over it. And I'm going to bake them up into a nice cracker.
You just want to go over what you're doing?
Yes, and we're going to be making just a nice light vegetable broth soup because we are all kind of suffering from the norovirus here. And then I'm going to make a honey, ginger, orange syrup that we can mix with water and ice. Just kind of help rehydrate us. Just a light dinner tonight because we are all under the weather here. 4 out of my 5 kids this morning threw up in their bed. So it has been a crazy, crazy day in our household. I'm going to start out with our broth by chopping up 1 yellow onion. I'm going to mince all of my vegetables fairly small because I want them to cook up really well, and I also want when we're eating it just to have really small pieces so that it's easier for us to digest and a little more gentle on our tummies. I'm going to put, before I chop that up, I'm going to put some olive oil in my Dutch oven so that I can saute up my vegetables. And I'm going to mince up this onion, or a fine dice, so that they're just small pieces. And simply just so that we don't overload our systems here. This is just a great thing to do if you're just under the weather, or you've got the stomach bug like us. But it's a simple, flavorful, light, brothy vegetable soup. There we go. I'm going to slice through here and then do kind of a simple, small chop that way. And the key, I think what's going to really help with this broth, that's kind of the star, is the onions and the celery. They'll add just a nice, really.
You had a question. How'd you learn to cook? Did a family member teach you, or did you learn by yourself?
I learned a lot. Well, lots of different ways. So I'm the youngest of 10, but my mom had 7, so I had 3 older ones that were already out of the house before I was born. And so my mom cooked a lot of meals, and then when we were about 10, we moved from Iowa to Nashville. And when we moved there, we got a cook for our house because my parents are really busy academics. And so I would just kind of shadow her and follow along, and I learned a lot from her. And then I started cooking for the family at 13. I kind of started taking over and cooking dinners for the family. And then my parents would host a lot of dinner parties, and so we would have chefs from different restaurants come to our house, and they would cook, and I was always in the kitchen. They probably hated me, but I was always in there peeking my head in, trying to figure out. And then I just really loved cooking from a young age, so I watched all the shows. I got the Fine Cooking magazine and the Gourmet Cooking magazines when I was kids. And it really worked well with my family because I was cooking dinner, so they really fostered it. And also being I traveled a lot because my family's from Europe. And so I got to explore a lot of different European cuisines at a young age, which also made me just really curious about cooking. So that's really kind of, how I learned and got to where it is now. And just a lot of it is doing it on my own and self-teaching myself different things like, oh, I want to make this. So I'd go and make it a bunch of times until I perfected it. Or you go to a restaurant and you're like, oh, I can tell these seasonings are in here, and trying to recreate dishes.
And it helps that, we got married real young in college and had a family. So she's been cooking for 5 people always.
Yes.
Her parents, us, our kids. And it's so she's always had a lot of people to cook for since she was 13.
It's always been cooking for a large group. I will say, the hardest thing was for me when I was in college or when I was in grad school, and just cooking before we had a big family, when it was like maybe 3 or 4 of us. Cooking for a small amount was so hard because I'm so used to having cooked for big meals. So that one, I think it's harder for me to cook for 1 to 2 people than it is for me to cook for 6 or more.
Yeah, a good story to explain that is on our second or third date, she actually made homemade beef Wellingtons, and it's just me and her, and she made like 6 of them. And I'm like, who's gonna eat all these?
Yeah, you just get so used to buying ingredients and cooking that way that you're like, oh, I probably should have adapted this to smaller. It's like I make this really good chili, and I've shrunken it down in the years from when I started making it, but it makes like 40 pounds of chili, and that's just too much chili for anybody to eat. I'll actually be making it next weekend for the Super Bowl. It's my thing. It's actually it won a Gibson guitar. It won a chili contest there. It's won a contest in like 3 different states, so I'm pretty proud of my chili recipe. It's pretty good. I'm adding in, I had about 6 stalks of celery that I made a really small kind of chop on them. Smaller than I normally do for my soups, because again, we want to have more smaller, more delicate bites. I'm going to saute. And then I'm going to peel up my carrots over here. And we'll chop them up. Well, actually, you know what? These are sauteing. Let's slide over to our orange drink so that it can start cooking in the syrup. You get another cutting board out. So we're making kind of like a base for like a lemonade, so this is like an orange, lemon, and ginger aid, I would say. But I'll make it and then we'll add ice and water to it, so it's just like a concentrate. But it's really nice, especially when everyone's having a hard time keeping some liquids down. So I'm gonna first start by just cutting my citrus fruit, giving them a quick juice, and then I throw in the peel as well, because that's going to add a lot of extra flavor, and then before I'm ready, I'll fish those out. But it adds, you want to add the peel in, especially when you are, I get a little orange jump out, just because it gives you more flavor than just the juice. There we go. So right now I'm doing 4. These are like, I think these are clementines or tangerines. You could do regular oranges if you wanted. And then I'm gonna do 3 lemons. And this orange, they'll give a nice boost of citrus and vitamin C, which will help us. And the honey, which is also known to have, help you with like allergies and whatnot, and help you with sore throat, which half the kiddos have. Luckily, out of everybody in our house, I was the least hit with this stomach bug, so that's at least a blessing. And just kind of really get in there and juice it out. You could always just squeeze with your hands if you want. This little juicer thing is really, I really like it. Now we're gonna do our lemons. And this will add just a little bit more zing, while the oranges have a little bit more of a sweeter taste to it. Perfect. And I'll cut this one. And we'll just, and then at the end, we'll give it a quick little, I'll fish out all the peels and stuff like that. So we just have kind of the syrup, but I really want to cook everything in the, with the rinds, because it does bring out a little bit more flavor. Which is, when I used to teach preschool, we used to do like a lemonade stand, and I had all the kids, they had to juice their lemons, and we made it all from scratch, and then they would invite their parents to come, and we did it like bougie lemon. We had a lavender that you could add in, basil. You could choose whether you want honey lemonade or one sweetened with sugar. There we go. And give this a quick stir. They're browning up nicely. Wash my hands. Now I'm gonna I have my orange peels and my lemons with all the juice in my sauce pot. And I'm going to add in just a little bit of water. I want enough water to cover them, so it'll probably be about 2-3 cups. You don't want to add too much because, again, this is going to be your concentrate, so you'll be adding in more water later. So I just really want enough to kind of submerge them. So it was about 2 cups. And then I'm going to add in a cup of sugar. A good squeeze of honey. And again, this is going to be a concentrate, so you will be adding ice and water to it. And it's probably going to be about 1/3 cup of honey. I just love the flavor that honey gives. And then if you had fresh ginger, you could use it. I just have ginger in a tube. And I'm going to give it a good squeeze. It's going to be about a teaspoon or so. I'm not making it too much of it because ginger can be a bit spicy. So I really want my little ones to enjoy it. I can take a lot of ginger, but the little ones, they don't like it as much. And then I'm just going to give it a good stir. And we're going to let it boil. And essentially cook all of those oranges and the lemons and the rinds in there. Let it get to a boil to release out some of their more fragrant flavors. But I'm going to wash my hands. Now let's work on the rest of our soup. So I've got our onions and celery sauteing in there. You can see my onions are starting to get a nice little browning to them. We're going to chop up our carrots and we are going to add them to our soup as well. I'm going to do a nice, try to do a nice small dice on those as well, just so that, again, you have nice small pieces. Makes it a little bit easier for us to digest. Right now, everybody's been so sick. Nobody has really eaten anything today. I did get my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old to eat some crackers, but everybody's just, it goes in and it comes right back out. So I've been suffering here a bit much. There's my knife. So I'm going to cut off my tips and my bases. And I'm going to quarter these bigger parts. Just like this. It's just pretty small cube. And that way they're just have little tender bites in their little soup. And this is just a basic, really basic soup. So I hear our crackers. We'll have to take those out in just a second and score them. But let me get these chopped up in the bowl real quick. I'm just going to do a quicker chop. And again, in the beginning, you'll probably, you'll be slow at all your prep, but it gets faster with time. And sometimes I'll ask my husband to help me be a sous chef and help me prep. And I realize how much slower, painfully slower he is at chopping, but he gets it done.
Jess just sent you some gifts.
Oh, thank you. And chop these up. I'm going to throw them in, I hear you, oven. Luckily with crackers, they still have to bake a bit more after this. This is just to give them a good cut. Okay, I'm going to give this a stir. And then we'll take out our crackers real quick and we'll give them a quick cut. And then we'll pop them back in. So I'm going to get a trivet. And as you can see, they're not fully baked, and that's why we're taking them out to cut them, because if you try to cut them when they're fully baked, you'll just end up having cracked crackers. So we're going to give them a nice cut, and then we'll pop them back in for another 15 minutes. Give my carrots, turn that up. And this is going to be hot. If you had a pizza, for some reason I realized I don't have a pizza cutter. I'm just going to use a messaluna, which is a rounded knife, to give these a quick cut. And you're just going to kind of cut through. And then when they bake up, you'll be able to break them much easier into cracker size things. They'll have essentially like, you know, when you get serrated cardboard and it has those edges, that's essentially what this will add. It will just allow you to break them a little bit easier. And these will go nice for dipping in the soup. And this we made with our sourdough discard, which was 1 cup of discard, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, and some seasoning. And then what I like to do is I like to give them all a little prick with my fork. You know, you won't really see them, but this will just help them crisp up. Perfect. And then back in the oven we go. And this will just help it when we want to break them later and break into nice, more uniform squares. So pop these back in the oven for another 15 minutes, and that's what's going to give them that nice crunch. Yeah. And I'll set my timer. And now let's work on our lovely broth. Okay, so I have my onions, carrots, and celery sauteing up in here. Before I add in my broth, I'm just going to season everything up. I'm going to add a little bit of garlic salt. Not very much, but enough to give a little garlic kick. And then I'm going to add some bay leaf. I'm going to add 2 bay leaves, and I'm going to crumble them up. This will just kind of allow it to, the flavors to kind of seep out some. And then I'm going to add a little bit of pepper. Probably about a half a teaspoon or so. Give it a good stir. And then I'm going to add 4 cups of water and a big heaping spoonful of chicken bouillon. You could use straight up chicken broth if you wanted, but you'll need then a bit more salt. And my goal, if I can just get my kids to have a little bit of this, I'll be happy. Just to get a little bit of nutrients in there. I think, you know what, I'm going to do a little bit more. 2 more cups. So about 6 cups. Perfect. Because I want it to be very brothy. We're going to give this a nice stir. And then I'm going to use some better than bouillon. I'm going to use a big heaping spoonful. And this is going to give a nice chicken flavor to our broth. You could also use better than bouillon vegetable. My kids tend to like the chicken broth over the vegetable one. And this is going to give the saltiness to our soup, so I don't have to add any more salt. There we go. Just stir it in. And then you can see over here we have our lemons and our oranges. They're boiling in the sugar and the water. It has a nice fragrant smell to it. There we go. I'm going to turn my heat back up high. And we will prep some green onions and some parsley. And we'll add some lemon juice to our broth as well. Just to get, we'll kind of cut through the broth and the stuff like that, but also give another dose of vitamin C. But before I do that, let me give this a nice stir. You see how if the rinds are getting a little softer, they're letting out some of their natural oils into this, and it will just add for a really, really nice flavor. Here we go. And the trick is you need to add extra water to it. You can't just do it in the juices, because if you did it in just the juices, you would probably turn to a
What's that going to be? You have a question?
This is going to be a drink for us. It's going to be an orange, lemon, ginger, lime, like lemonade type thing. So we're making the syrup base, and we used 4 like clementines or tangerines, 3 lemons. We put in about a teaspoon of ginger paste, and then I added 1 cup of sugar and like a 1/3 cup of honey. And we're making the syrup now, which will be like a concentrate. And we'll pour that over ice, and then we'll add some more water to it. But just kind of like a, you know, just a nice touch of vitamin C for everyone since we're all under the weather. Now we are going to chop up some green onions and some parsley that we will add onto our soup. And I think these, again, we're sticking with everyone being so sick. We want to have a really mild soup that still tastes great, but is going to be very gentle on our stomachs. So a lot of times when we have like the flu or the cold, I'll make chicken noodle soup. But when we have a stomach bug, I try to avoid anything that can really cause us to have an upset stomach. And just keep it simple with celery, onions, carrots, some green onions, parsley, broth, lemon. Just to get some nutrients in and keep us hydrated. And then we'll have our crackers to go with it with some sourdough we made with sourdough discard, which will be gut healthy, which will also kind of help us get back on track. And hopefully we won't be out for 2 count. I think we got this from our brother. We had their niece and I had my niece and nephew over. They were like 2 weeks ago, and they were really sick, and they got it, and I wonder if they passed it to us. But I also heard, like, my older kids told me how many, they have so many kids out of school because everyone's sick. Nice. And then we're gonna chop up some parsley. You could use other fresh herbs if you wanted, but this is what I had. You could add in, if you had some fresh basil, basil would work nice. I don't like cilantro that much, so I kind of don't use cilantro as much. I don't mind it in some of like Mexican foods. If you have cilantro, you have to get it really, really fresh. The older it is, the more dish soapy taste it has. So I like to just use cilantro when I can pick it straight from my garden. That way it doesn't have that funky taste to it. And we'll give this, and then really chop this up fine. And we'll throw this on our soup. Give it a nice, and the way I'm mincing up my herbs, I find this works better than like using herb scissors or whatnot, is you just push down and then you just hold your hand on the top of your knife and you just chop over it like that. There we go. And then soon we'll be taking out our lemons and our orange peels out of our concentrate over there. And then we'll let it reduce down. There we go.
You're asking someone's asking for your concentrate, what you did.
Okay, yes, well, I've got to go over there in just a second. I'm going to be fishing out some peels. So I used 4 tangerines or clementines, the little cuties, and then 3 lemons, and I just cut them in half, and I used my little juicer, juiced them, threw the peels in. I added a cup of white sugar and a 1/3 cup of honey and a teaspoon of ginger, and then about 2 cups of water, and I'm letting them simmer here and cook down. I'm going to pull out the peels now and then let it reduce some more, and essentially what we'll do is I'll take a glass of ice, we'll pour over it, and we'll have a nice refreshing kind of lemonade, like an orangeade, a lemony orangeade. Let me see. Oh, my spot is good. So I'm going to pick out these peels. And if you wanted to really strain it fine, you could pour all of this over a fine mesh strainer or a cheesecloth. But my kids don't mind it being a little pulpy. But they're nice and hot. But I always say when you're making any type of lemonade or limeade, throw your peels in because they have some nice flavors to it that will add and really bring out in your concentrate. So it's like, sometimes, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a Renaissance Festival, but one of our favorite places at the Renaissance Festival is they always have those fresh lemonade stands or limeades, and they make it right there where they just cut up the limes, and we always do the smash, which is limes, lemons, and oranges, where they like literally cut them in front of you, add sugar, and smash it up and pour water and ice over, and it is just so refreshing. Go. Let's see if I have any more in here. And then what I'm going to use is my slotted spoon, just to get out some of the bigger ones while it's reducing down. So you see I have a couple big things. And we'll just scoop that out. And we're giving it a nice good boil because we want it to really like reduce and kind of turn into a little syrup. Go. And I think I got most of it. And now I'm just going to let that boil. I'm going to turn it down just a little.
You got a question? So I'm coming in late. What are you cooking today?
So today we are making just a light vegetable soup with carrots, celery, onions, and green onions, some herbs and spices, chicken broth, fresh parsley, because we're all kind of got the norovirus here, so we've got a stomach bug. I'm making an orange and lemon and ginger concentrate so that we can kind of have a fresh kind of orange lemonade. And then I have sourdough crackers in the oven using my sourdough discard. So I've got my soup here. I'm going to just turn it down. And I'm going to throw in, now that I've got a nice bubble on it, I'm going to throw in my parsley. And we're going to add in some fresh lemon juice as well. So, I've got my juicer over there.
You had a lot of well-wishers today saying, hope you feel better.
Yes, I know. I hope so too. I hope we have a fast recovery. I'm luckily already feel like last night was the worst of it for us, but my kids, they definitely had it hard. Especially my little ones, my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. I don't feel like they understand what's going on, but they're pretty miserable. And it kind of sucks. We normally, when we get stomach bugs, we don't all get it at the exact same time. But last night, it was like I was sick, my husband was sick, and then it was like a knock on the door. I threw up in the bed. And then like 30 minutes later, a knock on the door from another kid. I threw up in my bed. And that happened 4 times. 4 out of my 5 kids threw up in their bed last night. So that was a joy. So we're adding our juice from our fresh lemon in here and give it a stir. And then I'm just going to do a quick taste, see if I need to add anything else. But again, we're doing a very light vegetable broth. So
you got a question? Do you always put lemon in your soup?
No, this is more for like when we're sick and we're having stomach problems. This is kind of like a nice light soup. And there is another soup I do make that I do lemon in it, like a lemon chicken orzo soup. But I feel like the acidity and the tartness from the lemon just adds another flavor profile to it, which just makes it a little bit more lighter for us and gives us another boost of vitamin C. Okay, let's give this guy a little stir, and then I think we can go check on our crackers because I have a feeling they're going to be done just right about now. So we've got our crackers right here. They're crisp up. Perfect. I see, yep. See how they're pulling up nicely? So I'm gonna pop them off. When you pull crackers out of the oven, you don't need to wait until they're super crispy in the oven. You pull them out and in about 5 minutes, they'll be hard and crispy. They just need to get off the heat and the rest of it, get all the moisture out. So I'm gonna take them right here and put it on my trivet here so I don't melt my thing. And then I'm just gonna pop them. You can see how they're got a nice little crisp already on them. Delicious. And this, it's a very simple, easy sourdough cracker. We just used a cup of our discard, and then we mixed in 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Then we spread them out thinly on our sheet. Then I sprinkled over some rosemary, black pepper, and garlic salt. And then you bake for 10 minutes, you cut them, and then you bake them again. So they're still hot, but you guys can see they're starting to break apart easier and get more, as they cool, they get crunchier. But we are essentially done here, so I'm going to show you how we'll have it all served up tonight. So I'm turning off my drink right here. And let me see. Since it's going to be hot, I'm going to do it in one of these cups. You never want to put hot and cold together in glass because it will, it can cause it to shatter. So essentially I filled my cup up with ice, and I'm just gonna add in fill it up halfway with our concentrate. And then all we gotta do is add a little bit more water. Perfect. And then I'm gonna taste it, see how it tastes. Delicious. The ice cools it down quickly, and you'll already want to cut it with some more water into, but it's just a really simple orange and lemon limeade. And then let me get my bowl for my soup and my crackers. Okay. So, well, essentially just a very light dinner for us because we're all not great, but this is such a beautiful, simple broth. You know, we have carrots, celery, onions, green onions, parsley, lemon juice, bay leaf, pepper. And just a lot of broth to really give them some antioxidants, vitamins, rehydrate. And we'll have several of our crackers here. Our sourdough crackers that they can kind of dip in with their thing. Well, thank you guys for joining us here today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We try to do live shows every day, especially when we're feeling well. Again, for a quick recap, we made our lemon orange aid with some fresh ginger in it, and then a nice vegetable broth soup and some sourdough discard crackers. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again for joining us here today.